The cargo bay was loud and busy as usual. Captain Tae-young walked between the big metal boxes, checking everything. His ship had just landed at Velatrix Station, a big space station where ships from all over the galaxy came to trade. Tae-young had been a captain for 15 years. He knew how to spot trouble. His second officer, Ji-won, walked up to him fast. Her face looked worried. She said they had a problem in cargo hold 7. The station computers found something strange there, something alive that was not supposed to be there. Tae-young followed Ji-won through the cargo area. When they got to hold 7, they found a small box hidden behind other cargo. It looked cheap and badly made. The computer could not figure out what was inside. Ji-won said it must be smugglers. She wanted to call security. But then they heard a sound from the box. It was high and sad, like a baby crying. Tae-young felt his heart squeeze. He moved closer to the box without thinking. He opened the box carefully. Inside was a small creature. It was about the size of a cat. Its fur was beautiful, changing colors from purple to dark blue. The creature had 4 eyes. All 4 eyes looked up at him. The little thing was clearly a baby. It moved in a clumsy way and made desperate crying sounds. Ji-won made a shocked sound. She whispered that it was a Keltharian cub. Tae-young felt cold fear run through him. The Keltharians were a mysterious species from far away. They almost never talked to other aliens. They protected their children more than anything. Stealing a Keltharian baby was a crime that could get you killed in many parts of space. The cub cried again. Its small body shook. Tae-young reached down and picked it up gently. The moment his hands touched the cub, it stopped crying. The small creature pressed itself against his chest. All 4 of its eyes focused on his face. Ji-won said they needed to call the Keltharian embassy right away. But Tae-young told her to wait. He could feel the cub's fast heartbeat against his hand. The little thing had stopped shaking now. It made a new sound, a soft chirping that Tae-young could feel in his bones. He said to call Dr. Haijin first. The cub needed help. It looked sick and hungry. They walked through the station to the medical room. People stopped and stared at them. Seeing a Keltharian cub was very rare. Seeing one held by a human captain was something nobody had ever seen before. The cub pressed itself tight against Tae-young's chest. It seemed like it was trying to become part of him. Dr. Haijin was waiting. Her eyes went wide when she saw the cub. She started to ask if it was really what she thought it was. Tae-young said yes and asked what he should do. Haijin told him to just keep holding it. She said she had read about Keltharians. They attach very quickly to whoever saves them when they are scared. She said the cub now thought Tae-young was its parent. Tae-young looked down at the small creature. Its 4 eyes were closing one pair at a time. The pattern was strange and beautiful. The soft chirping sound got quieter. Tae-young said he was not the cub's parent. He just opened a box. Haijin said to tell that to the cub. She checked the small creature with her medical tools. She said its stress was almost gone. Its body temperature was normal now. Whatever Tae-young was doing, it was working. She told him to keep doing it. For the next hour, Haijin gave the cub medicine and water while Tae-young held it. Every time he tried to put it down, even on something soft, the creature started screaming. The sound was so loud and terrible that people came running from far away thinking someone was being killed. Ji-won came back with news. The Keltharian embassy was sending someone. They would arrive in 6 hours. She said they sounded very worried. Tae-young sat down carefully, still holding the cub. The little thing was sleeping now, making tiny snoring sounds. Its fur shimmered softly with each breath. He wondered what would happen when the Keltharians arrived. Would they be angry? Would they take the cub away? And why did that thought make him feel sad? He looked at his crew members. Haijin was cleaning her medical tools. Ji-won was reading reports on her datapad. Everything seemed normal. But Tae-young knew that nothing would be normal again. This small creature sleeping on his chest had changed something. He could feel it. The cub made a small sound in its sleep. Its tiny claws flexed gently against his shirt. Tae-young realized he was holding his breath. He let it out slowly and carefully adjusted his arms to support the cub better. 6 hours until the Keltharians came. 6 hours to figure out what to say. 6 hours with his small warm weight against his chest, trusting him completely. Tae-young closed his eyes for a moment. He had faced pirates, navigated through dangerous space, and survived things that should have killed him. But he had never felt as responsible for anything as he did for this small creature sleeping in his arms. The cub's heartbeat was steady now. matching the rhythm of his own. When he opened his eyes, he found Jiwon watching him with a strange expression. She asked if he was okay. Tae-young looked down at the cub again. Its fur had brightened, showing more blue than purple now. It looked healthier already, peaceful. He told Jiwon he was fine. But he was not sure if that was true. Something had happened when he opened that box. Something more than just finding a smuggled animal. The cub had looked at him with those 4 eyes, and in that moment, something had connected between them. Hyejin said the cub needed to sleep for a few hours. Its body was exhausted from stress and hunger. She recommended that Tae-young find somewhere comfortable to sit. It might be a while. Tae-young nodded. He moved to a chair in the corner of the medical room. The cub stirred slightly but did not wake. He settled in, adjusting his position so both he and the small creature would be comfortable. Outside the window, he could see the stars. Thousands of ships moved through the space around Galactic Station, each one carrying cargo, passengers, and stories. His ship was just one among thousands. He was just one captain among millions in the galaxy. But to this small cub, he was everything. He was safety. He was home. He was family. The weight of that realization settled over him like a blanket. The cub chirped softly in its sleep. Tae-young found himself smiling. Whatever came next, whatever the Kiltharian said, whatever happened in 6 hours, right now this moment was simple. A tired baby was sleeping safely. That was enough. The Keltharian representative arrived exactly when they said they would. Ambassador Rethak was very tall. Their fur was the same colors as the cub, but with deeper and more complex patterns. Their 4 eyes changed colors as they looked around. The air seemed to buzz with energy around them. The ambassador spoke in perfect galactic standard. Their voice sounded like several voices speaking together in harmony. They said they had come for the cub called Valkyra. That was when Tae-young learned the cub's name. Tae-young stepped forward. He was still holding the cub. She had barely left his arms since he found her. He introduced himself and explained how they discovered Valkyra in a smuggling box. He said they had been taking care of her. Rethak's eyes looked at the cub. Something in their posture became softer. They said Valkyra had been stolen from her birth nest 17 days ago. Her family had been searching desperately. They thanked Tae-young for finding her. Tae-young said of course and started to step forward to hand over the cub. But the moment he began to move Valkyra away from his chest, her eyes opened. The sound she made was terrible. It was a scream so loud that alarms started going off in the docking bay. Her small claws dug into his uniform, holding on tight. Rethak said Valkyra's name softly and reached out. But the cub only screamed louder. She pressed herself against Tae-young so hard he could feel her racing heart through his clothes. Rethak pulled back. Their eyes cycled through colors very fast. They looked surprised and confused and worried. They said this was unexpected. Jiwon asked what was happening. Her hand moved toward her weapon without thinking. Rethak said that Valkyra had bonded. They said it with wonder in their voice. They asked Tae-young what he had done. Tae-young tried to calm the still screaming cub. He said he just held her. He held her when she was scared. Rethak made a sound that might have been laughter or amazement. They explained that Keltharian cubs bond to those who save them from terrible fear. It was their most sacred connection, built into their biology. But this bond was extremely strong. Valkyra would not let herself be separated from him. Tae-young asked if there was a way to transfer her back to her family. Even as he spoke, he could feel Valkyra's grip getting tighter on his uniform. Rethak admitted there was a process, but it took time and careful work. To force a separation now would hurt Valkyra badly, maybe permanently. In their culture, the person who formed the bond became the cub's guardian until the cub grew up or chose to release the bond. Tae-young looked down at Valkyra. When he stopped trying to hand her over, she got quiet. Her 4 eyes were open now, looking up at him with complete trust. He asked how long it would take for her to grow up. Rethak said for a cub of Valkyra's age, about 4 standard years. Jiwon made a surprised sound. Tae-young felt his whole life shifting. He told the ambassador that he was a cargo ship captain. He worked dangerous routes. This was no place for a child. Rethak said gently that Valkyra had chosen him. Or rather, her deepest survival instincts had chosen him. In their culture, this was not a burden but a great honor. They asked if Tae-young would accept the role of bond-bearer for Valkyra. Tae-young looked around. He saw Jiwon's worried face. He saw Hyejin watching from the medical bay door. He saw the crew members who had gathered to see this strange event. Then he looked down at Valkyra. She had started her soft, rhythmic chirping again. He asked what would happen if he said no. Rethak said they would take Valkyra and try to help her adjust. But they would not lie. The trauma of forced separation from such a strong bond could be permanent. Some cubs never recovered. They lived, but they did not grow well or happy. The docking bay was silent except for Valkyra's purring. Tae-young thought of all the practical reasons to refuse. His dangerous work, his small quarters, his complete lack of experience with children of any species. But then he felt the weight of the small creature in his arms. He saw the absolute trust in her multiple eyes. He felt the way her whole body had relaxed when he decided to keep holding her. He heard himself say he accepted. He would be her bond-bearer. Rethak's eyes showed something that looked like joy. They said they would help him. They would teach him about Keltharian cubs. They would provide supplies and guidance. He would not be alone in this. Over the next few days, Rethak visited often. They brought special food for Valkyra. They taught Tae-young about her needs and behaviors. They explained that the bond would stabilize over time. Right now, Valkyra needed constant contact because her fear was still fresh. But eventually she would become more confident. But that time seemed far away. Valkyra refused to be put down for more than 30 seconds. Every time Tae-young tried to set her somewhere, even on the softest bed, she would start screaming. The sound could be heard 3 corridors away. By the 5th day, Tae-young was exhausted. He tried to work while holding Valkyra on his chest. Every time he moved too much, one of her eyes would open to check that he was still there. Misuk, their cargo specialist, said it was adorable. Ji-won pointed out that Valkyra's claws could cut through metal and that Keltharians developed mind powers as they grew. Tae-young said that was wonderful in a flat voice. But he could not help smiling when Valkyra made a tiny snoring sound. Rethak brought him something that looked like a baby carrier mixed with a vest. They explained that in Keltharian society, bond-bearers often carried cubs in special pouches for the first several months. It kept the cub close while letting the bearer use their hands. To Tae-young's relief, the pouch worked perfectly. Valkyra settled into it right away. Her purring got deeper as she pressed against his heartbeat. For the first time in a week, Tae-young could use both hands freely. Ji-won tried not to laugh when she saw him. She said he looked like the most dangerous space captain in the area, who also happened to be carrying a baby. Word spread fast through the station and beyond. Captain Tae-young, known for completing impossible deliveries, was now also known as the human with the Keltharian cub attached to his chest. It changed things in surprising ways. Pirates who might have attacked his ship left them alone. Keltharians had long memories and powerful friends. Station officials who usually demanded bribes processed his papers quickly. Other aliens looked at him with respect and awe. Misuk said that Valkyra was the best security system they ever had. They completed a delivery through dangerous territory without any trouble. But it was not just about security. Slowly, Tae-young found himself adjusting to this new life. He learned Valkyra's different sounds. The hungry chirp, the tired chirp, the happy chirp, the scared chirp. He discovered she loved the hum of the ship's engines. She slept best during hyperspace jumps. He found that certain lights made her fur shimmer with happiness. One day, Hee-jin watched as Tae-young fed Valkyra while talking on his communicator about cargo contracts. She said he was getting good at this. Tae-young replied that he did not have much choice. But there was no anger in his voice. Valkyra finished eating and started playing with the communicator. Her multiple eyes tracked its movements with intense focus. Hyejin said softly that Tae-young did have a choice. He chose Valkyra. Tae-young looked down at Valkyra. She had grown noticeably in just 3 weeks. Her fur patterns were becoming more complex. She was starting to make new sounds that Rethak said were the beginnings of language. In a few months, she would start forming words. He said quietly that yes, he guessed he did choose her. And looking at her small face, seeing the trust and love in her eyes, he knew he would make the same choice again, every single time. 3 months passed since Tae-young became Valkyra's bond-bearer. Life on the ship had changed completely. The crew had adapted their routines around the small Keltharian cub, who had become part of their family. Valkyra had grown bigger. She no longer fit entirely in the pouch, but she still insisted on being close to Tae-young at all times. She had learned to walk and run. moving through the ship with increasing confidence. But she always came back to him every few minutes as if checking that he had not disappeared. She was talking now too. Simple words in both Keltharian and Galactic Standard. Her favorite word was da, which meant bond parent in her language. Every time she said it, Tae-young felt something warm in his chest. The ship's schedule had changed. Tae-young took shorter routes now, staying closer to systems with Keltharian populations. Rithak visited regularly, teaching Valkyra about her culture and helping Tae-young understand her needs. The ambassador had become a friend. One morning a priority message arrived. It came from the Keltharian Homeworld Council. They wanted to meet Valkyra and assess the bond. More importantly, they wanted to meet Tae-young. A human bond-bearer had never happened before in Keltharian history. The council was curious and probably skeptical. Ji-won read the message aloud. The council wanted them to bring Valkyra to the homeworld for something called a bond verification ceremony. Tae-young said that sounded scary. Rithak appeared on the communication screen and explained that it was actually a great honor. The council wanted to officially recognize the bond and grant Tae-young full parental rights under Keltharian law. However, there would be tests, traditional checks to make sure Valkyra was healthy and happy under his care. Valkyra, who was now big enough to sit on Tae-young's lap instead of being carried constantly, chirped curiously at Rithak's image. Tae-young asked what kind of tests. He was gently stroking Valkyra's fur, which had become even more beautiful with complex patterns. Rithak explained that the council would observe how she responded to his presence and absence. They would measure her development in all areas. They would interview him about his commitment to her future. Then Rithak paused. They said the council would also attempt to have her reassigned to a Keltharian guardian. Tae-young felt shock go through him. He asked what that meant. Rithak explained it was tradition. The council had to offer the cub the chance to bond with one of her own kind. If Valkyra accepted another guardian, it meant the original bond was not as strong as believed. If she refused, then the bond was considered unbreakable. Tae-young would gain all the rights and honors of a Keltharian parent. Tae-young felt something cold in his stomach. He asked what would happen if he refused to participate. Rithak's eyes showed sympathy. They said the council would assume he was not committed to Valkyra's welfare. They would remove her from his care permanently. That evening, Tae-young sat in his quarters with Valkyra curled in his lap. She had grown enough that her head rested against his chest. Her four eyes blinked in their sequential pattern as she started to fall asleep. He could feel her heartbeat matching his own rhythm. He asked her softly what she thought. Should they go face the council? Valkyra made a questioning chirp and nudged his hand with her head. Over the past months, they had developed their own way of communicating. Tae-young could read her moods and needs accurately. She had learned to understand many of his words. He admitted to her that he was scared. What if she decided she would be happier with another Keltharian? What if he was not enough for her? Valkyra's response was to press herself more tightly against him. She made a sound he had never heard before. It was a deep, vibrating hum that went through his whole body. It felt like reassurance, like comfort, like an unbreakable promise. Tae-young wrapped his arms around her and said, okay. They would go together. The journey to the Keltharian homeworld took 5 days. Valkyra spent most of it exploring the ship with growing confidence. But she always returned to Tae-young's side every few minutes, making sure he was still there. When they arrived, Tae-young was amazed by the planet's beauty. The world shimmered with the same colors as Valkyra's fur. It looked like the entire planet was alive with shifting lights. The capital city was built into crystal towers that caught and bent light in impossible ways. The council meeting was held in a huge chamber. The walls seemed to be made entirely of windows opening to the sky. 7 council members sat in a semicircle. Their aged fur showed intricate patterns that told stories of their long lives. The eldest councilor spoke. Their voice was like music with many layers. They acknowledged Tae-young's role as bond-bearer to Valkyra. They asked if he came willingly to submit to the traditional evaluation. Tae-young felt Valkyra pressed against his side. He said yes, he came willingly. The counselor said the testing would begin. The first tests were physical. Keltharian doctors examined every aspect of Valkyra's health. They used technology far more advanced than anything humans had. They scanned her developing mind powers. They checked her growth patterns. They analyzed her nutrition. The verdict was clear. Valkyra was thriving. In fact, she was developing faster and better than most cubs her age. One physician said it was remarkable. Her stress levels were almost zero. Her mind powers were developing ahead of schedule. The bond was clearly providing perfect conditions for growth. Next came the emotional evaluation. This was harder for Tae-young. He had to watch through a special window as Keltharian specialists tried to play with Valkyra while he was out of the room. She participated, but not happily. Her 4 eyes kept looking at the door. When they tried to move her to a different room, her distress was immediate and obvious. She did not scream. She had learned better control, but the sad sound she made broke Tae-young's heart. The evaluator said that was enough. They told him to come back. The moment Tae-young entered the room, Valkyra launched herself at him. She moved so fast it startled everyone. She hit his chest and wrapped all 4 limbs around him, hiding her face against his shoulder. She kept saying "da" over and over in a small, scared voice. Tae-young held her close and murmured that he was there. He was right there. The evaluator was making notes. They said the attachment was very strong. Maybe too strong. Then came the interview. For 3 hours, the council questioned Tae-young about his life, his work, and his plans for Valkyra's future. They were especially interested in how he would handle her education, her cultural connection to her people, and the practical problems of raising a Keltharian child in human spaces. Tae-young answered honestly. He said he would not pretend to have all the answers. He was learning as he went, but he was committed to giving Valkyra everything she needed. That included connection to her culture. Rethek had been teaching them both about Keltharian traditions. His crew had made the ship safer and more comfortable for her. He was planning to take shorter routes so he could spend more time near Keltharian populations. One counselor asked if he would really change his entire life for this cub. Tae-young replied that he already had, and he would do it again. The council members looked at each other. Their eyes cycled through colors as they communicated silently. Then the eldest counselor said it was time for the final test. The reassignment test. Tae-young felt his stomach drop. This was the moment he had been dreading. This was when they would try to take Valkyra away. A Keltharian named Sermoth entered the chamber. They were a guardian who specialized in caring for orphaned or abandoned cubs. Their fur patterns showed great wisdom and experience. They approached Valkyra with practiced gentleness and kindness in their movements. Sermoth spoke to Valkyra in beautiful musical Keltharian. They said hello and told her they had come to meet her. Valkyra, still in Tae-young's arms, looked at Sermoth with cautious curiosity. She chirped a polite greeting but did not move closer. The eldest counselor spoke to Tae-young. They told him to set Valkyra down and step back. This was it. This was the moment that would decide everything. Tae-young's heart pounded in his chest. He gently set Valkyra on the floor and took 3 steps backward. His hands were clenched at his sides. Valkyra immediately looked up at him. Confusion showed in all 4 eyes. She said "duh" in a questioning voice. Tae-young told her it was okay. Though his voice was tight, he said he was right there. Sermoth knelt down to Valkyra's level. They spoke gently, asking her to come see them. They produced a beautiful toy, an intricate crystal that caught the light and made rainbow patterns. Valkyra glanced at the toy. Then she looked at Sermoth. Then with clear decision, she turned and walked back to Tae-young. She wrapped herself around his legs. She said no clearly. It was one of her newest words. Then she said, "Maida." Sermoth tried again. Their voice was full of kindness. They said they could take such good care of her. She could live there with others of her kind. She could learn their songs and stories. But Valkyra just held tighter to Tae-young's legs. The counselor commanded Tae-young to move further away, all the way to the far side of the chamber. Tae-young looked at Valkyra. She was climbing up his legs now, trying to reach his arms. He asked if this was really necessary. The counselor said the test must be thorough. They asked him please to do as instructed. Gently, Tae-young detached Valkyra and handed her to Sermoth. Then, forcing himself to breathe steadily, he walked to the far end of the massive chamber. He was at least 50 meters away now. For a moment, Valkyra just stared at him. She seemed unable to believe what was happening. Sermoth held her gently, speaking soothing words, offering the beautiful toy, trying to get her attention. Then Valkyra began to shriek. It was the same sound she had made in the cargo hold all those months ago. Pure, complete distress. the sound of a child who believed she had been abandoned. Her 4 eyes were locked on Tae-young. The sound got louder and more desperate with every second. She screamed his name over and over. Da da da! The council members watched without showing emotion. Surmuth continued trying to calm her, but nothing worked. Valkyra was beyond consoling. Tae-young took a step forward. He started to ask how long this would continue. The eldest counselor told him to stay where he was. They had to see if she would calm down. But she did not calm down. If anything, her distress got worse. She was fighting against Surmuth's gentle hold, trying to throw herself toward Tae-young. Her fur had lost its usual shimmer and gone dull with stress. Small sparks of energy began to appear around her. It was the first sign of her developing mind powers triggered by extreme emotion. Surmuth called out to Tae-young. They sounded concerned. The eldest counselor suddenly said that was enough. They told Surmuth to release her. The moment Surmuth's arms opened, Valkyra ran. Her small legs carried her across the chamber faster than seemed possible. She practically flew into Tae-young's arms, wrapping herself around him with desperate strength. Tae-young held her close and murmured that he had her. He was not leaving. He promised. Instantly, Valkyra's shrieks changed to her deep rumbling purr. She pressed her face against his neck and went completely limp. Her whole body relaxed as if a switch had been turned off. Within seconds, she was asleep. It was the sudden, complete sleep of a child who had exhausted themselves crying and finally found safety. The council chamber was silent. The 7 counselors talked among themselves in their musical language. Their conversation rose and fell in harmonies. Finally, the eldest turned to face Tae-young. They spoke formally. They said they had completed their evaluation. The bond between Tae-young and Valkyra was genuine, strong, and good for her development. More than that, they paused as if searching for words. They said it was one of the purest bonds they had ever witnessed. Valkyra did not merely accept him as her guardian. She had chosen him as her family with every part of her being. Another counselor spoke. They said this was unprecedented in their history. Never had a non-Keltharian been granted full parental rights. But the evidence was undeniable. Valkyra was his and he was hers. The eldest continued. They hereby recognized Tae-young as Valkyra's bond parent. He was granted all rights, responsibilities, and honors given to Keltharian parents. Valkyra would be registered as his daughter in their records. And they added, with what might have been amusement in their eyes if he ever needed it, he could call upon the full resources and protection of the Keltharian people. They took care of their children and those who cared for them. Tae-young felt something tight in his chest loosen. He looked down at Valkyra, sleeping peacefully in his arms. Her fur was beginning to get its shimmer back. He said thank you quietly. The eldest said no, they should thank him. He gave their child back her life when he could have simply reported the smugglers and walked away. He accepted a bond that changed his entire existence. He loved her when she was at her most vulnerable. For this they had eternal gratitude and friendship. The council also gave gifts. They granted priority docking at every Keltharian station. They gave exemption from inspection in their territories. They provided a direct communication line to their defense fleet. If Tae-young was ever in trouble, he could call for backup. It was an incredible honor. That evening, back on the ship, Tae-young sat in his quarters with Valkyra in his lap. She had woken from her nap full of energy. She wanted to tell him about everything she had seen on the homeworld. She mixed Keltharian and Standard Galactic freely as she talked. She said it was a big place with lots of people like her, but not Herda. Herda was special. Tae-young smiled and told her she was pretty special too. He smoothed down her fur gently. Ji-won came to the door. She said she had been looking at the council's gifts. The Keltharians had granted them amazing privileges. Priority docking. No inspections. Direct line to their military. If they were ever in trouble, they could call for help. Tae-young asked if it was because of Valkyra. Ji-won corrected him. It was because of both of them. Word was already spreading. The human captain who formed an unbreakable bond with a Keltharian cub. He was becoming something of a legend. Tae-young looked at Valkyra, who had started to get sleepy again. Her 4 eyes were closing in their pattern. He said he was just a cargo captain who found a child in a crate. Rethak's voice came from the doorway. The ambassador had come to see them off. They said no. Tae-young was a father who chose love over convenience. That was the rarest thing in any galaxy. The ship departed from the Keltharian homeworld. They headed back into the familiar chaos of trade routes and cargo runs. Tae-young held Valkyra close. She was getting bigger every day. She was learning more words. She was developing her personality. In a few years, she would be completely different. But some things would never change. The bond between them, forged in a moment of crisis, strengthened through months of care, tested and proven by the highest authorities of her people, was permanent. Unbreakable. Valkyra murmured sleepily.
She asked, "Da?"
In a soft voice. Tae-young asked what she needed. She said, "Love you," in her small voice. Tae-young felt his eyes burn with emotion. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, between where her 4 eyes were now closed in sleep. He told her he loved her too. As the stars streaked past the window and Valkyra slept safely in his lap, exactly where she belonged, Captain Tae-young knew that everything had changed. He had found something in that cargo hold, something far more valuable than any shipment he had ever carried. 6 months had passed since the council verification. Life had settled into a new normal aboard Tae-young's ship. Valkyra was now almost twice the size she had been when he first found her. She could speak in full sentences, mixing both languages fluently. Her personality had blossomed in ways that constantly surprised him. She was curious about everything. She wanted to know how the ship worked, why stars looked different colors, where cargo came from, and 1,000 other questions every day. Tae-young found himself learning things just to answer her. The crew adored her. Even Ji-won, who had been skeptical at first, now carried treats in her pockets for the little cub. Valkyra had also started developing her mind powers. They were still weak and unpredictable, but sometimes Tae-young could feel her emotions as clearly as his own. When she was happy, warmth spread through his chest. When she was scared, he knew instantly. The connection between them had deepened beyond anything he could have imagined. One day, they received a distress call. A small civilian transport was under attack by pirates in a nearby sector. The transport was carrying families with children. Tae-young did not hesitate. He changed course immediately. Ji-won pointed out that getting involved was risky. They were a cargo ship, not a military vessel. But Tae-young remembered being the one who found a scared child in a box. He could not ignore other children in danger. He told Ji-won to open a channel to the Keltharian defense fleet. It was time to use that direct line the council had given them. The response was immediate. 3 Keltharian warships appeared within minutes. The pirates took one look at the Keltharian military and fled at maximum speed. The civilian transport was saved. The families aboard sent messages of gratitude. They were shocked that Keltharian warships had come to help humans. The warship commander contacted Tae-young directly. They said they came because he was bond parent to Valkyra. The Keltharian people protected their own and those their own loved. If Tae-young called, they would always answer. It was a sobering reminder of how much his life had changed. Valkyra watched the warships through the viewport with wide eyes. She asked if those were her people. Tae-young said yes, they were. She thought for a moment, then said they were his people too now. Because he was her Da. The simple logic of it made Tae-young smile. As more time passed, Tae-young began to understand what Rithak had meant about this being an honor. Other species treated him differently now, not just because of Keltharian protection, but because of what the bond represented. He had proven that humans could form deep connections across species boundaries, that they could be trusted with the most precious things. Trade deals came easier. Negotiations were more friendly. Doors that had been closed to him before opened readily. But none of that mattered as much as the small cub who followed him around the ship, chattering constantly, asking questions, and falling asleep in his lap every evening. One evening, Valkyra asked him a question that caught him off guard. She asked if he ever wished he had not opened that box, if he ever wanted his old life back. Tae-young set down the datapad he was reading and looked at her seriously. He told her honestly that his old life had been simpler, quieter, less complicated. He could go where he wanted, take dangerous jobs, and only worry about himself. But he would not trade a single moment with her to have that life back. She had made everything better in ways he did not even know were possible. Valkyra climbed into his lap and pressed her head against his chest. She said she was glad he opened the box. She said she could not imagine any other day. Tae-young wrapped his arms around her and agreed. He could not imagine any other daughter. As the months turned into a year, then 2 years, Valkyra continued to grow. She was learning to read and write in 3 languages. Her mind powers were developing steadily. She could now sense emotions from everyone on the ship, not just Tae Young. She used this ability to help, alerting them when crew members were stressed or unwell. She also started showing interest in navigation and ship operations. Tae Young began teaching her, starting with simple concepts. She learned quickly. Ji-won joked that at this rate, Valkyra would be flying the ship before she was fully grown. The scary thing was she might be right. Rithak visited regularly, continuing Valkyra's education in Keltharian culture and history. They brought gifts, stories, and news from the homeworld. Valkyra's birth family had sent messages. They were grateful she was safe and happy. They understood and respected the bond. One day when she was older, they hoped to meet her. But they did not demand it. The bond came first. Tae Young appreciated their understanding. He made sure Valkyra knew about her origins, her biological family, and her heritage. He never wanted her to feel disconnected from her people. But he also made sure she knew that family was not just about biology. It was about love, commitment, and being there for each other. On the second anniversary of finding Valkyra, the crew threw a small celebration. Misuk made a cake using Keltharian recipes that Rithak had provided. Heejin gave Valkyra a medical scanner toy that actually worked. Ji-won presented her with a junior officer badge, making her an honorary member of the crew. Valkyra was overjoyed. She ran around showing everyone her badge, her fur shimmering with happiness. When she came back to Tae Young, she threw her arms around him and thanked him for the best day ever. He laughed and said he should be thanking her. That night, as Valkyra slept in her own bed now, a proper Keltharian sleeping pod that Rithak had provided, Tae Young stood at the viewport looking at the stars. He thought about the day he found her, how his first instinct had been to call security and let them handle it, how a single moment of compassion had changed everything. Ji-won joined him at the viewport. She said he looked thoughtful. Tae Young admitted he was thinking about how random it all was. What if he had not checked Hold 7 that day? What if he had called security first instead of opening the box? What if he had refused the bond? Ji-won said those were a lot of what-ifs. She said maybe it was not random at all. Maybe some things were meant to happen. Maybe he and Valkyra were meant to find each other. Tae Young smiled and said that was not very scientific. Ji-won shrugged and said sometimes the universe did not need to be scientific. Sometimes it just needed to be right. A sound from behind them made them turn. Valkyra stood in the doorway, clutching a small blanket. She said she had a bad dream. Could she sleep with Da tonight? Tae Young opened his arms and she ran into them. He carried her to his quarters, settled her in the bed and lay down beside her. She asked him to tell her the story again. The story of how they met. Tae Young had told it dozens of times, but he never got tired of it. He told her about the cargo hold, the crying sound, the small scared cub in a box. He told her how she had stopped crying when he picked her up. How she had chosen him from that very first moment. Valkyra listened with all four eyes focused on his face. When he finished, she said it was her favorite story. Because it was the story of how she got her family. Tae Young kissed her forehead and agreed. It was his favorite story, too. As she drifted off to sleep, her purring filling the quiet room, Tae Young thought about the future. Valkyra still had years before she reached maturity. Years of growth, learning, and change. But no matter what came, no matter what challenges they faced, they would face them together. The bond between them was unbreakable. Not because some council had verified it. Not because Keltharian biology made it strong. But because they had chosen each other every day in 1,000 small ways. That was what made it real. That was what made them family. Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance. Ships passed in the darkness, each carrying their own stories. And on one small cargo vessel, a human captain held his Keltharian daughter close and knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. He had opened a box and found a frightened child. She had reached out and found a father. Together they had found something that transcended species, culture, and biology. They had found love. They had found home. They had found each other. And in the vast cold emptiness of space, that was everything.